great everybody came out for a celebration of Howard Berkman's life, and you know, over by the door, Al Goldberg and myself have worked hard on doing a book, and there's you know, donations. You can make donations to the Howard Berkman Scholarship to help young people who can't afford instruments, you know, and lessons. So keep that on your mind. We're going to bring up one of the legends in Rogers Park. Ladies and gentlemen, Al Day. Come on up, Al.
Right down the channel. Let's get this around. Oh, that's too fancy. They were scared. We do. I'm good at that.
This one is I love it. You said a legend. I was looking around. Figured. Are hallowed and weeping. Gray sky rushes restlessly by. You wonder now what is worth keeping. 'Cause you can't lose anything now. You can't lose anything now. You are a grown man and a wise one. You have seen much there is to see. You know the fight's lost with its begun. 'Cause you can't lose anything now. You can't lose anything now. Sometimes you be wandering and feel so all alone. Sometimes your heart feels like a heavy stone. But if you run down to the seaside, try to cast yourself to the sea, waves will throw you right back again. 'Cause you lose anything now. You can't lose anything now. think and tell me what you feel. I'll start to tell you why you should go. I loved you in the woods, I loved you in the field, I loved you in the mountains, capped with snow. And I never had a friend like you before. Time just makes me want you more and more. You know I've known your face since you were just a girl, but I could see the woman in your eyes. Was it hard to wait to have you in my world? Tell you why you should go. All right. Who is next? Come on, I'll moderate. Thank you, Al. Beautiful song called Traveling Companion, or Robin's Song. And I've been told Robin's in California, somewhere around Carmel. So I've been told a few people want to come up and say a few words about Howard. So, Gene?
This is okay. Hey everybody. It's really great to see everybody here today. Thank you. I emailed, we used to call him Dickie Larson, but now he goes by Richard. So, and me and Dickie Larson were the two main keyboard players for Howard's recordings in the early days. And so I emailed him and I said something like, I really wish you guys could all be here. And I got a nice email back from him and he said, could I please read it? He says, hi Karen, I wish I could be there on Sunday to celebrate Howard's life. His joyful spirit and his music will be remembered for a long time. Those recording sessions at Plinth have been in my memories and in my dreams, and the feeling is one of happiness and adventure. Some of us from those days have already passed on, perhaps waiting for our arrival, so we can join the celestial Yama and the Karma Dusters. I hope that they call the new sound down from heaven and return that bolt of lightning. So for those of us who are left, let's consider that we were part of a wonderful and significant world, the world of Howard Berkman and the world of our youth. And that's from Richie. From Dick Larson. Thank you. As for myself, those recording sessions were really fun. We worked with Barry Mraz, who's no longer on the planet either, and it just was a really great evolution thing to work all together in that little studio, and all the music transformed itself as we played it. And so that's the beauty of the recording. It captures that where it started out and where it ended up. So he was part of that. So it was kind of neat.
Thanks. That recording that Karen just referred to, that she and Dickie Larson played on, along with Jerry Field and Jack Sullivan, Louis Favors, myself, Neil Pollack, and Howard. That Yama and the Karma Dusters CD is available at the front, and some of Howard's later works, the Essential Howard Berkman with a lot of his folk songs is available. Blue Testament is available, his blues band song, and the
special, he had a gypsy music album called Hot Fingers, which right now is only available on CD Baby. So, in the back we've got some books. Johnny O put together the Howard Berkman Guitar Seminar, which is a series of lessons and workshops for guitar players. That's available, as well as the songbook. So let's remember Howard, support his music foundation. Gene Lubin, you want to come up and say a few words?
Well, when people ask me if I know Howard Berkman, I always say, which one? Because Howard was a true Gemini, and he had two sides to him. When I met Howard, he was about 16 years old, and he crashed a party at my house. I was about 19 and in college. He needed a drummer, and he asked me to join his group called the Jesters. About a year and a half later, he formed the Knaves. So I played drums in the Knaves with him. And at that time, Howard took great pride in being Bad Boy Howard. He worked very hard at it. But of course, I knew that underneath all that was a very sweet and loving guy. And after the Knaves broke up in 1967, I saw him on and off. And then we lost touch for 35 years. Then the Knaves album finally came out in the year 2001, and I found a way to get in touch with Howard through Al Goldberg. And I got in touch with him, we started talking, and Howard was so sweet, so gentle, so respectful. I said, holy shit, Howard, what happened to you? This is absolutely true. And he was just the sweetest, most reserved person you'd ever talk to. But as our relationship over the telephone grew, and we started to talk about old times, he turned into the rotten prick that I always knew and loved. And so, I've always loved Howard for both sides of his personality. I was never sure which side was real and which side was put on. I think the good side of Howard was the real side, and I think Bad Boy Howard was the side that he always tried to put on, because he was really a very shy and gentle person underneath. The influence Howard had on me was perhaps similar to the influence that he had on Johnny O here. I was an accomplished drummer. I had played around a bit, but when Howard formed the Knaves and I started playing with him, and we got a recording contract, we got on the radio, we started playing large venues. It was the happiest time of my life. I was about 21, 22, and the memories from those days stay with me. As a result of those memories, not only of playing in a band in the 60s, but playing with Howard, being friends with him, it stayed with me to the point that I'm still involved in music. I had my own record label in Chicago and produced reggae music. I still record. That influence on me at a young age is due to Howard and will always stay with me. And I believe he had a similar influence on Johnny O. And so I feel very close and bonded to Johnny O for that reason. And each of you knew Howard in your own way and loved him in your own way. There's a famous book by the name of The Bridge of San Luis Rey. They made a movie of it. Without giving away the whole story, it takes place in Peru in the 17 or 1800s. And it's about a church pastor who tries to discover God's purpose by investigating the lives of 6 people who die when an Inca bridge collapses. Why these 6 people? And he investigates their lives and so forth to discover God's purpose. Well, he's he's tried by the church for crimes against the church. You're not supposed to do things like that. But here's the important part. At the end of the book and the movie, the basic lesson is this. There's the world of the living and there's the world of the dead. And love is the bridge that connects the two. And so your love for Howard Berkman is what will always connect you to him. And keep that in your heart and remember that he's listening on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. I did another friend of Howard's who wasn't able to be here, Steve Binder, who's in San Francisco, and Steve sent the following email. I first met Howard in June 1970. Howard's stepbrother Danny was getting married in Phoenix. I was driving. Howard needed a driver and his mother suggested me. We were at first glance not well matched. Howard, a professional musician, very worldly, engrossed in the people's struggle. Steve, an undergraduate chemistry major, 2 years younger, very naive, a classical pianist. However, we did have a few things in common. Love of travel, love of books, love of females, especially Mary Jane. After 6 days together in a car, we were very good friends. Skip forward to January 1973, I paid a call on Howard and Robin in their No Stars hotel in Paris. Howard immediately arranged a really cheap single room for me on the top floor, and really cheap is in big capital letters. I became their chef. Only so much can be done with one burner, and we had some great times until I headed south in the spring. Skip to January 1974, I'm back from Europe. I visit Greenleaf Street, and Howard offers me a really cheap place to stay. $60 a month. So I became roommates with Howard and Robin for over 3 years. I also met Al Goldberg, Jerry Fields, Barbara Knooper, John Holberg, Karen Tafejian, Harry Mason, all neighbors, and a lot of other people who value the arts and were doing their best to practice their craft. I learned many, many things from Howard. This could be quite a long list, but I would start with having and loving and seizing life 24/7 with all the feelings that it can bring. Everything about the guitar, how to play it, how it is made, what makes them valuable. Everything about the blues, how it is structured, where it came from, and what makes it great. Everything about Henry Miller, and in general, the role of a rebel in society. A big adult improvement on the Holden Caulfield Catcher in the Rye model. I would like to think Howard learned a few things from me. The value of reading music. Once he got over his resistance to it, he was immediately great in it. The discipline of classical music. He certainly heard plenty of that through the floorboards. I also think he liked my cooking. He got plenty of that too. When Howard moved to Colorado, I saw myself as among those who understood. When I asked my piano teacher, guru, Abe Stockman, why he left Juilliard and moved to Chicago, he replied, "Better to be a big fish in a small pond." Similarly, Howard seemed to have everything he needed in Colorado. I was only able to visit him there 3 times, and not at all since I became a dad and less of a rover. In 1979, I too made a move to Berkeley, a smaller pond than Chicago, but one with many advantages. Wishing I could be there with all of you at this event. Steve.
Steve Binder.
all those sides of Howard that Gene talked about. I'm sure we've all experienced those same different sides in many ways. The attraction, the desire to be with Howard. He consumed the room when he was there. You know, it was like, what's he gonna say next? You know, or maybe he'll just pick up the guitar and play a brand new song. It was that desire and attraction just to be connected with him. And it was, sometimes, you know, you had to like get away. You know, and you know, fortunately Howard went away. He went to Colorado and I didn't have to go. You know, but I find it so interesting that you know, kind of I was like the drummer, the business guy in the band. You know, sometimes I always felt like I was Howard's sidekick. You know, sitting there playing the congas. You know, Howard's getting all the attention, and it was like, you know, adios. Sooner or later, I, you know, found my own way, and be able to stay connected to Howard. We produced records over the years. I helped take care of his music, some of his music business for him. You know, Howard never really wanted to be a big star. He may have wanted to, but he really never wanted to like work. He didn't want to drive in cars and stay in motels. You know, and he liked being in Colorado. And when he moved to Paonia, you know, I'm sure all of you have memories of Howard, but Howard stopped smoking cigarettes. He stopped drinking alcohol, and he stopped smoking pot. No, you know. I mean, I'm sure we all remember those songs, Cheap Marijuana. It's in the songbook. But, you know, but Howard was, I mean, Howard's last gig was for the mayor of Paonia's birthday party. You know, and it's like, you go like, okay, Howard was a citizen in his community. Everybody loved him. And when we went out there for that memorial in Colorado, the influence that he had and the feelings of loss that the people in that town in western Colorado had was amazing, with radio shows and tribute shows and nightclubs playing his music and storefronts, you know, having his YouTubes in constant loops. And the good folks out there created a scholarship fund in his name. And so we're all trying to like help support that. And through whatever we can do, and any sales of his CDs or music and royalties will be going in that direction. So we're all glad you're here. We've got going to have some more music. Does a gentleman from Miami want to come up and say a few words? An old grammar school, high school buddy, roommate of Howard's, Abe Goodfriend.
Yeah, Howard. Gene's right, the Gemini. So I'm going to be rabbinical. Says that one time the students in the Rav were walking from the upper market to the lower market in Tiberia. It's a long walk. You ever been there? So they asked, who's a ben olam? Who goes to the next world? Who's merited to have a place in the next world? So they all expected that the Rav would say, oh, this great scholar, or you who spend your lives in pious behavior of all kinds. The Rav says, you know those two guys in the marketplace that are clowns, that make people laugh, that move them from their feelings of whatever it was, and move them to laugh and enjoy life? They're sons of the next world. So that should be the portion of everyone that ever stands on a stage. If they succeed, Howard surely succeeded. Who doesn't remember Howard making Alice's restaurant jump every place he played? I haven't seen Howard in, 20 years, maybe the last time at your house. But the first time I saw him, we were in high school, Niles, right about the same time as Gene. It was first the Knaves and then the Jesters, more Geminis. And I was a kid that just lost my mother, and I was lost. There was Howard shows up, and he had just really lost his father. You know about that. So we became friends. I don't know how that happened. But I remember Howard got sick right after that. He was bleeding on the inside. They put him in the hospital. So somehow, I was with him a lot in the hospital. And we became friends, and we became close. And he was a friend. A real friend. I don't think there's anybody here who really knew Howard that didn't know that he was really their friend. Okay, bad boy friend. All the ways, right? But he was my friend. It's the most valuable thing. You know, it was hard for me to come. Alan said, oh, you gotta come, you gotta come. Okay, I'm gonna come. I didn't know whether really I should have tomorrow. Listen up. I saw a Yiddish proverb says one old friend is better than two good new ones. It's really true. There's a lot of things to remember about Howard. You know, it says like this. A person has 5 souls. 5. You get 1 soul when you're born. Before that, even when there's movement in the womb, that's 2. A soul when you speak. A soul when you become bar mitzvah. And that soul is nourished from the deeds and the striving of a person. Then there's a 5th soul. That's called the nefesh yechidah. The soul that he gets when he unites as much as he can according to the purity of his being and the work that he's done in the world, that he unites with the Creator again. These are bars, isn't it? What's the difference? What's the difference? Who doesn't drink wine? So that's the state a person's in when he comes to be judged. When his whole will is only to be close to his Creator, closer and closer, and realizing everything that he's ever done that keeps him apart, even at that stage. Howard was a friend who did deeds that made me a better person. That did deeds that cured my heart. Even if I hurt him, I remember one time he asked me, you know, take this warm oil, heat up the oil, put a drop of oil in my ear. That's what he did. Okay, I don't know. We lived together in Greenleaf, you know. So okay, I did. The oil was too hot. It burnt his ear. I was so embarrassed. I was mortified. I felt the guy could clobber me in the head. His ear is valuable. He didn't say a word. He said, it's okay. It's okay. That's a great deed. That's a deed that'll come to the judgment and that'll stand him in good stead. I'll always remember that. I think we can all remember the friendship that Howard gave. And how he gave us, as an artist, to be a great myth maker. He did that in friendship. I remember when he introduced me to Gene. He says, Gene is one of the greatest drummers in the Western world. And I believe it was true. How can it not be true? And he said the same thing about Alan. Alan drums the Circle campus. Wow, nobody could drum like Alan except Gene. Alan. Howard made myths. He made myths for a generation. Tried to express what we were, what we wanted to be, what we could become. That's an artist. A person that makes myths and and makes us see the mythology of who we are. He's too intellectual. He was a friend, a real friend. I don't know why he's gone. I just know like this that it doesn't matter. I appreciate that he was here. I appreciate that he's gone. They said about Rebbe Akiva, you know, you read about the 10 martyrs. Rebbe Akiva's flesh was flayed from his body. In the midst of this, the angel stood up in heaven and said, Zay Torah, this is Torah and its reward. How can it be? So what did God say? He said, be quiet, I'll return the world to tohu vavohu, chaos and emptiness. So what can he answer? So it was explained to me. He says, it's not that I'm not going to tell you, be quiet. He says, if you keep asking me, I'm going to have to tell you. And I'm not going to be able to tell you unless I go all the way back to the beginning when it was chaos and emptiness. We got to start from there to understand. So he was our friend, a great artist, a myth maker. I owe him. I appreciate him. I'm sure everybody else does.
The many sides of Howard. Anybody else want to come up and say a few words?
I have something to add.
Go. I knew there was something.
Howard knows that I always had to have the last word because I was older than him. But I'm going to tell you something that I wasn't sure whether or not to share this with people or not, but I was speaking to Howard about 2 weeks before he died, which was the last time I spoke to him. And I was telling him about some health conditions that I have. And as a result of some surgery I had 5 years ago, and I take a lot of medication to keep the pain at bay. And Howard said, let me tell you something, Gene. You're going to outlive me. You're going to outlive me. You're going to live a lot longer than me. And I thought he was just kidding around, and so I said, no, Howard, come on, we're both going to grow old together. Be a couple of old farts together, and then we went out to conversation. I never gave it much thought, but since he's died, I've thought about that a lot. And I wonder if he knew something. And I just feel like sharing it with you.
I hardly knew Howard at all. I knew about him. I've run into him a few times. But the best memory I have of Howard is I was performing in Aspen at Richard Harding's place. He had a place in Aspen. And Howard came up to sit in with me. And all I have to tell you is lightning struck the stage. Voila.
I have a story about that.
I have to say that.
Were you there?
Well, here's what happened.
Were you there?
I wasn't there at Harding's, no. But Corky played at the Wheeler Opera House in Aspen. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And I called up Howard and I said, Corky's playing at the Wheeler. And he says, you know I don't go out to see other people play and because it clutters up his brain, right? He doesn't get his songwriting thing. No, he doesn't, he wasn't a guy who turned on the radio. to listen to somebody else's music, because it didn't help him write his own songs, right? I said, we gotta go. As a favor, he went to the Wheeler Opera House to hear Corky. And he sat in the seat, him and me and Richie all sat together at the Wheeler. And he thought you were the funniest thing. He was falling off of his chair laughing during the whole show. And he admitted that he had a good time and that he enjoyed, going to see you play. So he was like astounded that he could go out and hear another musician and that it was fun. I mean,
I work so hard on my music and people laugh at me.
He works so hard at his puns, and that's why people laugh at him. So that's really their deal. So it was really a milestone for Howard, in many ways. And we had a really great time, out at that gig. But he wasn't going to go, I said, I'll buy your ticket. You don't have to pay for the ticket. If you don't like it, you can get up and walk out, And he's like, okay, that's a deal, I'll do that. And he ended up staying for the whole show, and he loved every minute of it. So him and me and Richie, we laughed ourselves onto the floor, so we had a fun time. And Richie Marks isn't here today, but he wishes that he was here, and he sends all of his good tidings to everybody that knows him. So Richie's mom recently passed away, and he had to go back to Colorado, and he couldn't stay for this. But he is going to come back to Chicago to see people in a month or so. But so that's his message he really wanted to be here, and he wanted you guys all to know that he's thinking about you, and that he's not here. So he felt really bad about it.
And I just wanted to add one thing about lightning hitting the stage. I experienced a few performers in my life where that actually happens. You guys probably know what I'm talking about, so I really don't need to explain it. I'm sure you know. But one of the other performers that I experienced that with was Mike Bloomfield. It's like this electricity was coming out of him all the time. And anything he did had this incredible power to it. And when Howard walked on stage, it was the same thing. It's so rarely I've ever seen anything like that. And it was just everything he played and the subtleties in it created so much natural energy. It's like just the other day, I was thinking about how music doesn't get enough credit. We tend to think about the artists and the performers, but music is this like amazing power. And we just come by and we borrow a little of it, and then we go off somewhere else. But the music is this incredible, powerful energy. And I see people like Mike Bloomfield, it just passes through them. And I saw the same thing with Howard, it just passed through them. The greatest artists just borrow the music. That was Howard. That's what I felt. And it was just the one time he sat down and asked me, and that was it.
There's other people like that too. I mean, even people that, thank you, Corky, appreciate that comment. And the other thing about Howard was, he lived with his music. His music was his everyday life. Whether he was just fooling around trying to write a song or fooling around trying to figure out a lick or whatever it was, it had to be the right thing for the right lick, And he spent his life doing that, and musicians are like that. There's nothing you can do about it. It's who you are, it's what you do. You get up in the morning and you're music all day. And whatever else you do, your music is part of it. And you can't run away from that. You just gotta let it, flow along. But he did do that. He, whenever he had a minute, he'd sit down and play. Didn't matter, And he'd work out some cool little thing that he wanted to put in a song, and you'd be listening, and one day you'd hear that little thing that he worked out, and there it was. He stuck it in the song somewhere. And he didn't write about things that weren't important to him. He only wrote about things that were important to him, or that I guess I could describe as something very tongue-in-cheek, something that he wanted to satirize or that he thought was bizarre or funny. So he would write a song about it. But it always had a meaning to him. He didn't make empty tunes, ever. And that, to me, is really something I could never do, but I admired that a lot. So, the ultimate love-hate relationship, huh, Al? That's really true. You loved him this minute and you hated him that minute and you never want to see him again, and then he'd apologize and you go, okay, no problem. So it was really interesting where his energy created, where his energy came from. He's talking about energy. It was just bubbling up, never stopped, just kept coming. So, you can play some more music? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you want to introduce them? Okay. More music.
Okay. We're going to have a special treat. We're going to have Bill Spencer and my daughter Julia are going to perform a couple of Howard songs, some of my favorite songs. So